Hello and welcome to this half-an-hour session covering the art of communication. In this session today, we're going to understand the Merrill-Wilson social styles and how we can best communicate to others with confidence and impact. We'll also understand how best to influence and engage with stakeholders using a variety of approaches. We'll look at the power of words and why it's important to carefully consider our language choices. We'll learn the importance of active listening. And lastly, we will go through our final top tips for effective communication. It is predicted that approximately 70% of our waking time is spent communicating in some manner. That percentage may vary from person to person, but knowing that we spend such a huge amount of our time every day communicating should make us want to strive to constantly become better communicators. Our communication skills play an important part in our success and even our happiness in life. However, communication can be challenging. George Bernard Shaw sums it up well by saying that the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. We can't always assume that people understand the way we convey our thoughts and ideas. It's vital that we learn how best to communicate key messages and ensure that they have been understood. On your screen now, you can see many ways in which we communicate to each other in the workplace and common areas that we might find challenging. This could include being able to successfully influence others and positively persuade them to support our initiatives and adopt our ideas. We're going to do a whole section today on the art of influencing. Giving feedback can also be a common area of challenge. You may find it challenging talking to senior people and/or getting your voice heard in team meetings. Managing up is also something that individuals can find challenging. This involves understanding the needs and priorities of your manager and helping them where you can to make their life easier. Often, managers will view you positively if you're able to positively influence them. Particularly challenging can also be delivering difficult messages and having performance conversations. This session today should help you to be able to understand the individuality of communication styles and how you can best deliver key messages to others across a variety of workplace scenarios. Every word we speak or action we take communicates something about us. We each have our own way of communicating. There are lots of different models that explain our social styles. In this session, we will talk through Merrill-Wilson's really simple model that explains 4 types of social personality styles, which help us to understand our own specific needs, wants and behaviours, and those of the people that we communicate with. We typically preference one of these 4 social styles: analytical, driver, amiable, or expressive. And in the following slides, I will go through each social personality style in more detail. Your communication style comes through whether you are aware of it or not. The style that you use most often is called your dominant style. Although we may have a preferred communication style, we can flex and use different styles where appropriate. It may feel unnatural at first, but with hard work and practice, it becomes a lot easier. Excellent communicators will be able to flex their style in different situations. A more fun way to think about it is with a little help from the Muppets. So let's take each one in turn and explain the social styles in a bit more detail. I'm sure as we go through each of the social styles, you'll recognise one that might represent your dominant style. Let me introduce you to the analytical social types. These individuals are interested in knowing facts, figures, and detail. They will be planners who are likely to be precise in considering and weighing up pros and cons before they commit to a decision. This means that they're likely to be careful, cautious, and possibly quite slow when it comes to making a decision. You'll also notice that these personality types tend to use precise language, focusing on specific details. They may also speak briefly and evenly. In terms of their body language, individuals with this dominant social style often have very controlled body language and a strong sense of personal space. Expressive social types are characterized by being high performers, persuasive, creative, and open to change. Think of them as the type of people that will gesticulate a lot and will express themselves with animation, excitement, and loud tones. Expressive types are likely to also get bored easily and be very much a starter, not a finisher, which means they're easily distracted by new and exciting things and aren't particularly interested in the finer details. You might also notice that expressives have a tendency to use sweeping statements, be loud and enthusiastic, and you might even spot that they sometimes come with a cluttered workspace. They also do like having close personal space with others. Drivers, as a social style, tend to be task-focused, to be very competitive. They aren't the sort of people that like to just stop and say hello. They're driven by status and power. They often want to achieve individual glory and reward for their efforts. Drivers, as you can imagine, have a tendency to be impatient and want to see high impact. They often like to lead and will get straight to the point when they are talking. Expect them to be formal in their speech and to give direct eye contact and firm handshakes. Compared to the expressive social style, they will often prefer more physical distance, and you could see them displaying calendars with plans in the workplace. Amiable is the final social style. Individuals with this dominant social style will particularly place value on relationships, trust, and honesty. They'll be good listeners, friendly, and happy to go along with the small talk. Amiable personality types are usually team or people focused. They are, however, quite sensitive to criticism. You will notice that in amiable personality types, these people tend to use supportive language in conversations. They're often very patient and speak in soft tones. They like a gentle handshake or hugs, and they place importance on sentimental items. Being aware of someone's social style and adapting your communication style will help you to influence others more successfully. I'm sure from those explanations of the 4 categories of social styles, you'll be a bit more aware of how best you like to be communicated with. Now we're going to look at how we can flex our communication style to influence others. This does take practice, and the more we do it, the more we get comfortable with it, and it will become easier. So let's start with how to influence an analyst successfully. If you're working with an analytical social type, you'll immediately have more success if you come prepared and present them with facts, figures, research, logic, and detail. You'll need to use evidence and statistics to persuade them rather than enthusiasm or excitement. Take paperwork and a plan. Make sure you have all of the details to hand before you go and speak to the analytical social type. And don't expect them to make an immediate decision. These personality types are likely to mull over what you've presented to them, and they will ask a lot of questions. Lastly, Focus on the impact data benefits of what you are proposing. What about influencing an expressive personality type? Well, you need to start by showing some enthusiasm when interacting with them. Make quick points. Remember, they're not overly interested in the detail. In fact, offer to take over the paperwork and planning of the full details that need to be sketched out. Expressive types will be more likely to be influenced by stressing the newness of an idea or the excitement of it. So make sure you make it sound exciting, new, and an opportunity not to be missed. Driver social types are likely to be influenced if you speak clearly and concisely, if you know your facts and you never challenge their status or authority. They want to hear about ideas that will boost their standing and their profile. The key here is to be assertive. Mention potential results from your idea and a clear conclusion, and drivers will likely want to be involved. And lastly, how do you influence an amiable personality type? Well, some top tips are to have time to talk through and explain everything. Don't rush your conversation. Use an informal style and allow time for small talk. The person will likely want to ask you lots of questions, so make sure to explain and focus specifically on the benefits of this idea to the people in the organisation or its customers. Be careful of criticism and be logical throughout, as they often dislike change and chaos. What will help you in not just influencing others, but also becoming a better communicator is to be more careful in the language you choose to use when communicating. More often than we realise, we can unintentionally appear self-doubting and less confident in our own abilities just by the language we use when in conversation with others. So where better to start building your confidence and boosting belief in yourself and your own abilities than in your choice of words? Being conscious of the language you choose will help you to sound more professional, knowledgeable, and self-assured. In addition, it's likely that practicing better word choices will also help you to become better at influencing and persuading others. Words hold power and cause effect. Some of the most powerful words are the words that we use every day. These words can easily and unknowingly diminish your message and intent. Powerful people know what words to stay away from to maintain their influence and impact. And powerful people also know that when it comes to language, less is more. So here is your opportunity to increase your power and influence by decreasing your usage of these types of words. The first word is just. The word just diminishes the content that follows the word. It is something called a protector word, a word that softens what you want to achieve. So when you say, I'm just following up on my below email, you are downplaying the importance of your email and why you're reaching out to that person. You are softening your request for a response. And if you're taking the time and energy to follow up on an unanswered email, it is important. Do not make it look unimportant when it is, in fact, important to you. So try to decrease the use of the word just. The next word is very. And words such as very, absolutely, or totally do not add value to the noun you want to describe or highlight. You do not need to say, I'm very excited. Saying, I'm excited, does the trick. When you appreciate the power of words, you can use less of them to communicate the same thing. When you use fewer words, each word becomes more powerful and can be better appreciated by others. Next words are I think or arguably, and these are again protector words. So each and every thought you put out is your opinion. You do not need to preface it with the word I think. It broadcasts to the world that you think that you may be wrong, but it's okay because it's only what you think. It's a way of protecting ourselves from attack should someone else hold a different opinion. What we should in fact do is just say our opinions with confidence and conviction. The next words are I'll try, which are ability words. It's saying that you will try to do something, which suggests that you are unsure of your own abilities. If you say that you will do something, people know that you are going to try. Saying I'll try can make people feel nervous. The last thing that you want to do is make your manager think that you lack confidence in yourself and even your own ability to try. So it's not necessary to tell people that you're going to try. They know that you will. Then we have the word like. This also is similar to words such as whatever and etc. and so on. So these are filler words. Try and keep the likes and similar phrases to a minimum. These are common filler words that we use all of the time, but people use them when they're trying to think of what to say next. When you're doing this, it dilutes the potency of the words you are using. Instead, just pause for a moment to collect your thoughts. It will take practice to stop using filler words as much as we do often use in everyday sentences and in our lives as we're trying to think of what to say next. But it really does make such a big difference to your professionalism and to your key messages if you keep them to a minimum. The next words are obviously and actually. Words such as actually and obviously can rub people up the wrong way. These words suggest that the other person does not understand the issue or circumstance, and that you are right, or you understand something that the other may not. Making assumptions about other people's levels of understanding shows your lack of understanding and actually can annoy or frustrate others and cause people to disrespect you. So try not to make those assumptions in conversation. So now that we've looked at our language choices, let's move on to active listening techniques. We speak approximately 150 words per minute, but did you know that we can process up to 1,000 words in a minute? In light of this, our brain begins to do other things as it has extra capacity. How well you listen can impact on your job performance and the relationships which you build with others in your organisation. I'm sure you can think of many times where you're meant to be listening and paying attention, but you've started drifting. Maybe you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner tonight or what you want to say next. So what are we actually doing with all that extra time? We are usually listening to our own internal monologue, taking in the surroundings, or our thoughts have wandered off in a completely different direction. Naturally, this means we need to refine our listening skills and ensure we are actively listening to the person or people we are conversing with. If you're not a good listener, you will be a less effective communicator. So it could be these things that are stopping you from listening, thinking of what you want to say next, interrupting, planning, misunderstandings, disagreements, complicated language, boredom or distractions. All of these things are things that are going to demonstrate that we're not listening as well as we first thought. So active listening is a critical technique to showing others that we are truly engaged with what they are saying. So here's some top tips. Firstly, pay attention. Look at the speaker directly and avoid being distracted by environmental factors around you. This includes your phone, emails, any other distractions. Notice the speaker's body language. It's also important to refrain from having side conversations when listening in a group setting to show that you are giving the speaker your full attention. Number 2, show that you are listening. Use your own body language and gestures to convey your attention. Nod occasionally when you feel that a point has been well made. Smile and use other facial expressions if appropriate. Note your posture and also make sure that it is open and inviting. And encourage the speaker to continue with small verbal comments like yes and I understand. Number 3 is to ask questions to clarify your understanding. Reflect what has been said by paraphrasing. So what I'm hearing is, or it sounds like you are saying. Ask these questions to clarify certain points. So if you're not sure what was meant, ask, is this what you mean? It will show the speaker that you've been listening and you want to understand the key messages. Number 4 is to summarise back. Summarise regularly. And I will often do this, particularly with my line manager, when we've discussed something as to what I should be doing. So I'm going to confirm that I'm taking the right actions by summarising our conversation. It's a great skill and it really shows that you have been listening and paying attention in the conversation. Number 5 is to respond appropriately. So assert your opinions respectfully. Where possible, find out about the preferences of the person that is speaking so you can adapt your speaking style to suit theirs. And lastly, suspend judgment. Remember to accept periods of total silence. That total quiet will allow you and the speaker to think about what has been said. Obviously, you're going to be paraphrasing what the speaker has said to ensure that you've understood it. But remember to be curious and ask yourself, where is this person coming from? Why is this important to them? And what are they trying to achieve? Consider how the person feels about what they are talking about. It's likely that somebody is going to feel quite passionate about the things that they are saying, and we often feel that passion and that emotion. So make sure that you are suspending any kind of judgment when you're interacting with them. Sadly, we can't remember everything that we hear. So here are some laws of forgetting. We forget 50% of what we hear immediately. We forget 75% of what we hear within 2 months. And of the 25% we remember, only 60% is correct. Plus we add things that were never said in the first place. So why is it good that we don't remember everything that we hear? Well, the answer is that we simply can't retain all the information that we receive daily. We need to forget information so that new information can be remembered, much the same way as a memory in a computer. I have to emphasize that forgetting information is natural and it's a necessary part of communications. And therefore, we really do need to think about how we can deliver our messages with the greatest impact. Now I'm going to tell you about some ways that we can help people to remember the key messages that we're trying to tell them. So first up, let's think about positioning. Primary and recency effect mean that we are more likely to remember the beginning and the end. How many times have you been given directions and you can only remember the first 2 instructions? In light of this, consider delivering your communication like a story with a beginning, a middle and an end. It makes it a lot easier for people to follow. So in the beginning, you need to make your point right up front. And one of the great diseases, particularly in business writing, is postponing the message to the middle part of the writing. People are often time poor and they don't want to read long emails or listen to someone droning on for so long. They simply want to know the executive summary, the key things that you found and any recommendations. So you must acquire a knack for summarising. If the opener is no good, then the whole piece of writing or the statement that you're trying to make will be no good. People will move on. The middle part will include details, additional information, and the end should have action points and time frames. So think about how you structure what it is that you're saying or what it is that you're writing. Miller in 1956 also referred to the magic number 7, having found that our short-term memory is only able to hold 7 plus or minus 2 slots of information. However, if we are to chunk information together, Miller suggests that we can store a lot more information in our short-term memory and it becomes easier to retain and recall. Another thing that you can do is use the rule of 3. This is where you tell someone what you're going to tell them, you tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you've told them. So essentially, you're telling them 3 times. Tell them what you're going to tell them again, and then tell them what you've just told them. This can help people to retain information as well. And we can further help people, particularly in written formats, by formatting the work that we are doing to help people understand where key points are. So use bold, use capitals and bullet points and underline sparingly. And then this will clearly mark to people where they can find the key parts of information that they want to find. So there are lots of different ways we can help people to recognise the important parts of what we're trying to communicate with them. And that means that they actually remember it and retain it for the future. And so that brings us to our final top tips that I would love for you to remember as the key takeaways. So first of all, adapt your communication style for your audience. To recap what we discussed earlier, pay attention to those whom you work with and get to know how they communicate and express themselves. It would be so easy to just stay in our comfort zones and communicate mainly with those whose social styles closely match ours. But that just simply isn't the reality of the workplace. You're going to be working with a variety of people who have different social styles to yours. Don't try and change who you are simply to fit in. Change small things about your behaviour and communication to positively influence others. This will lead to better relationships within the workplace. Next up, keep your focus. Make a list of things that pop into your head or reasons that prevent you from listening properly. Based on the next couple of conversations you have, you will notice things that are happening in your head and why you are not listening. Is there anything you can do to improve yourself from having these constant distractions? Think about recent conversations you've had where someone was listening intently and then another one where someone wasn't paying attention at all. How did it make you feel? Good listeners usually make us feel comfortable and in safe hands, so bear this in mind. Next up, turn down your inner voice. Listening is an intentional act, and yet we don't always give it the attention it deserves. It's so easy to let ourselves get distracted by our own thoughts. In order to become a better listener, we need to commit to becoming a better listener. We can do this by focusing the mind and concentrating just on what is being said and not allowing ourselves to get sidetracked. Imagine you have a volume button where you can just turn down your own inner voice. No distractions, just the speaker. Focus on the words the speaker is using and their inflection and body language. Do their words match what their body is saying, their body language is saying? Interact non-verbally with the other person with small gestures or verbal affirmations. Nod your head and say brief comments such as "I see" or words that would not interrupt the other person's flow. This tells that person that you're fully engaged and you're listening, and this keeps you involved in the process. And lastly, ask lots of questions. There are so many people that admit that they don't ask questions because they're afraid of what others might think of them. But asking questions is one of the smartest moves you can make. Not only does it hone your knowledge and understanding by seeking clarification, but it also aids your relationships with others by demonstrating that you're really engaged with what that person is saying. If you're asking questions, others will see you as being authentic, open, and curious. So keep asking lots of questions. It's really important. Hopefully, it's become clear from this session that communication has a big impact. Everything we do and say, the words we choose, the manner in which we say it, the questions we ask, how we listen, has an effect on our intended outcome. It is a learning process. You might not be able to change and consider all of these things at once, but with practice, you will be able to bring in more and more of these elements. The important thing to remember is intent. What is the intention of our words and actions? What do we want to communicate? This will be remembered, even if the specific words we use are forgotten. I'll leave you with this quote from American poet Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you've said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So there you have it, the art of communication. Thank you very much for watching.